Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Tuning In with Tony here on December the 26th, 2025. And what an incredible year. This is the last week basically that we're in 2025. So those of you that are listening to this podcast all over the world, and we're going to be airing this right after the show because it is time sensitive, and there's so much that's going to be mentioned today about stillness. We've been talking in the last couple of weeks on this particular topic and what it is like to be still. And we're going to get more into the fact about timing in this particular part. But it's going to be a really, hopefully it'll be a good show that you'll get something from it and be able to end the year with some treasure in there for sure. But this show has been brought to you by Higher Self. It's a group of teachers that's been brought together energetically and through myself that is giving a higher vibration to those that are asking, to those that are looking for a higher way and a higher purpose, a higher mission in doing everything in life, whether it's working with the family as we have been in this Christmas season and in this holiday season, so on. And we just wanted to extend an incredible thank you because within the next few days we're going to be passing our 100,000 download. We're just short of that now, but in the next few days, probably by the end of the year, and we're looking at it by December 31st, in that area, we'll be at 100,000 downloads. That's mean that over the years, there's been loyal listeners that's been listening to our show for years, and so thank you for that you find some value in this show and in this work that we are doing, and it's a collective consciousness that we are sending it to. So thank you for all those that are listening to the show and continually giving us that support. And it makes us keep going and come up with new ways of doing things. As long as we have listeners, then we will be broadcasting. Okay? So thank you for that. There's so many ways to be able to raise our vibrations, whether you come in for a reading, whether you come in for a tuning session, which I use tuning forks, and we balance that energy ourselves every time people come in because they're going through something and they want to see things in a different light, see things in a different vibration. And basically it's been great as far as how we do that. And we're constantly upping our game, making ourselves more available, making ourselves to the point where people can look to us or look to spirit, and whoever you're connected to is we're all in that same ocean, and hope you can reach out to some light worker around the world, if it's not myself, to be able to find the clarity that you need. We have many classes and workshops as well. You should just go to our website at lovehigherself.com and go to our events column, and it'll tell you some of the classes that we have going. There's more that's going to be posted, but we have a self-tuning class coming up in the early part of January. So that will basically, you can tune yourself every day. We'll teach you how to do that over a 6-hour, very intense workshop in that way. So this way you can do it yourself, and that's what Spirit is always wanting us to do, things ourselves, and to be in that mode that we can, we have that self-empowerment. We have many other sound therapy classes, and there's a variety of them, and including the Fibonacci, distance healing, angel tuning, and the list just goes on. And it's all about finding the different ways that we are connected to very ancestral beings, and the tuning forks bridge that gap where we can communicate with these entities and that, including yourself. There's also in that same part of the events column where you can connect to our sound bath. We have a sound bath every month, and our next one is coming up on January the 21st. So be looking for that, and we have it online and in person. So if you are anywhere in the world, you can still be a part of this just by clicking our Zoom connection and registering so we know you're coming in, and we'd love to have you in that way for sure. Our podcast channel, well, if you go again to our website, lovehigherself.com, to our podcast area, it'll give you the link to the podcast that we have, and it's connected to everything, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many, many others that wherever your favorite podcast is, chances are will be there. Just type in raising your spirits with Tony Gyenis, and you'll find us. So let's get right into our show. The color today, of course, is pretty much the same theme throughout the whole last few weeks, and it's been white or neutral. So if it's off-white, or if you've got an earth, something neutral, just so whatever in your mind, the color or the shade is neutral. To some people it's gray, to some people it's a light brown or white or off-white. Whatever it is, that's today's color, and we don't want it to make it so that we're focusing on a certain one. It's mainly for you, and it's all about balance. The theme today is about balance and finding that energy for sure. So just to have a quick recap for last show, we were talking about the idea of spiritual burnout. This is where people are constantly talking and looking for ways to help other people. And there's so much drama. There's so much energy in trying to shift people and convince people, persuade people. And it becomes a burnout for many people, especially if you're a caring person, like most of us are. We want to help in some way, but we have to redefine what help means. What does help mean to you? And so we were looking at that in the last show and the different ways that people will burn out that way. And the biggest thing was that we kept trying to do things, trying to manifest what we want, trying. And we pretty much went through several examples where trying doesn't work. Effort doesn't work. That will work in the old paradigm where you were taught from the cradle that you have to work hard, and just to put in such a great effort, even if you don't win, as long as you put in the effort. And we talked about that as performance is not about effort. It is about alignment. It is about being by yourself. Instead of the struggle, have non-resistance. And that's really the key, is that non-resistance. We went on to say about letting the moment of stillness carve out something that's heavier in you. We gave the example of Michelangelo as he was carving out various statues out of solid stone. And somebody who had asked him, how do you do that? How do you take a block of rock and just carve out something out of that? And it's just amazing how you do that. He says it's quite easy. He says, all I have to do is take away the unwanted pieces. And the statue is actually in the rock already. And so the question is how do you know what the unwanted pieces are? And so we related that to your energy, because your body knows without any doubt what your unwanted pieces are. Sometimes we don't actually admit to them because we are either embarrassed because, we think that by this point in our life, we should have figured it out, or by this point in our life, we should be on another track or another place, and we're not. So we're sort of feeling a little down that maybe we're not advanced as we could be, or if you're comparing it to others or something. So we talked about that. And really what we say in this part 3, we want to talk a little bit about time. What is it about time that is really the big part of this, okay? I mean, look at what time means when we're a kid, and the ways that we use our bodies then. When we are young and all that, we're constantly fidgeting. We're constantly wiggling and giggling, okay? We're constantly in a point where we're running, bouncing, rolling down the hill, or speed crawling, or my favorite is while you're sitting, you're rocking back and forth. How many times have we did that as kids? In other words, kids just can't stop moving, okay? Our bodies never stopped. our bodies are reflecting how happy we were to be in this physical form. And who wouldn't be? I mean, when we are in pure spirit and we want to come in, this is one of the biggest things why we do come in, because it adds another layer to our energy to be in physical form and do all of this. We've already explained in other classes that in spirit there is no sort of temperature. There's no hot or cold. It's pretty much the same. So when we come into physical, no wonder that kids love ice cream, because it's cold, it's creamy, it's sweet, and those tastes isn't something that spirit really has in that way. So we can experience it through physical taste and touches and smells and so on. It brings another layer, another 5 senses that are added to the many that we have as energy anyway. And it, of course, we're just so happy. We're always moving and giggling and so on. We're always doing something to move. But of course, as we become more like adults, we begin to change this quite a bit. Instead of fidgeting, our fidgetiness, if that's even a word, we go from the fidgetiness, from physical to mental fidgetiness. In other words, we slow down our physical movement and more our minds are doing this activity, whatever it is. Some people will call it monkey brain. Other people will call it the mind just can't stop thinking of something. There's always something going on. And just realize that because you were coming in as children, we were taught to do exactly that. We were taught not to focus on ourselves, to be able to look at everything outside of us, including our Creator is outside of us. So if you've gone to any kind of different religious groups or whatever, not so much as saying it's right or it's wrong, but there was always some measure that it's outside of us, that we had to pray for something that had to come to us. And it's none of that in spiritual energy. It's always about something that you have that you need to own. All right? And this is where we were taking that physical fidgetiness and moving it into mental all the time and making it so we don't have the time to be able to be still. And that is really where the crux of everything lies, is when we look at the time that we need for ourselves. And how many times mothers are such an incredible energy. They give their lives and their everything to their children, and this is great for a number of years. And then when they move out, they don't know kind of what to do. They feel that they don't have value anymore. In some of them anyway, not all of them. But there is a point there that you need to connect and reconnect to yourself in some way. And the goal of being in this stillness is like looking outside of nature and just being mesmerized by a butterfly that's coming out of its cocoon, or a chipmunk that's collecting nuts all over it, or if a bird is hovering in certain places, whether it's a budgie, or whether it's a bluebird, a cardinal, a hummingbird, whatever it is. And what makes you in this stillness where you don't want to change anything? You're observing what's happening in nature, that there is somehow some kind of celestial interspecies communication that's going on with you and nature. There always is. Now, whether or not you pick it up is another story. But everyone is looking at this, and we're always thinking that we have to work harder, we have to do more, we're not doing enough. And sometimes, I see this so many times in people in business where they've worked 16, 18 hours a day, and by the time they get their head on the pillow, in some way, somehow, they are still thinking, I could have done enough. I could have done more, maybe. Did I do enough? Maybe I could have done, how much more can you... So the thinking that you are not enough, or thinking that you could have done more, obviously is not the answer. Because whatever you did was enough as far as spirit is concerned. But we are trained that we no, that's not enough. You have to do more. You got to do social media. You got to do AI and all these new things that they're getting us to focus on, and in some way, And I got to admit, I don't use AI as much as I could. It just that I know it's great. I have used it a couple of times, and it has been a great thing. But I don't rely on it. If I need something real quick, I'll use it, but it's not something that I'm going to be really, really attached to make it so that I keep up with this race, that I keep up with these people that are using it all the time. I mean, you could create a book now in a weekend, where it would take a person like years to create a book, to create the image, to create the story, and get it edited, and all of this. It would literally take years. I wrote a couple of books in my past, and it took a long, long time. One of them, another person wrote it, and I dictated, and it still took almost a year. And now you could do it in a weekend. You don't even have to know much about the topic. And this is really interesting that it's all considered, well, this is a way that you could do what they call a side hustle. And keeping everything just so you keep up. What are you keeping up with? And where is your stillness? If you're constantly going at Mach 5, Mach 1 is basically the speed of sound. And when you're in a plane, that's pretty fast. But when you do Mach 2, Mach 3, that's serious speed. When you're going at that speed, what are you racing? And most people have no idea. I've asked a couple of my clients that come in, and they would tell me about how busy they are in their business and how fast things are going. And they're trying to keep up. And when the question is asked, what are you keeping up with? Well, and they'll give some kind of an answer that, my competition's doing it and other people are expecting it, and so I got to keep up. And I said, well, it always comes down to the services that you're rendering. And as long as that is good, that's all you need. Everything else is fluff. Everything else is just nice to have. But to be able to be so focused on it and so stressful to keep up, this is where Spirit is saying it might not be as necessary as you might think. Okay? Because our bodies are constantly active in that way, and this is why we kind of feel that we need to do more. Okay? And what time do we see that is so important? And like everything is different as soon as you bring time into the factor. Now, I'm not sure if anybody has ever been like at a cottage by the lake. There was many times I had friends that had cottages by the lake, and it was so much fun having a tree overhang a little part of the lake, and we would swing on a tire and let it go, or on a rope and let it go, and we fall. And there's a raft about a couple of 100 yards away from the shore. We would swim to it and then dive off the raft. And there was a lot of times of that we had in my childhood anyway. And there were times where there wasn't much to do. But so I went down to some parts of the lake that there was a stream. And at one point I noticed that a leaf had fallen in the stream. And it was, it must have been a couple of 100 yards from the lake. And so I looked at it, and I saw this leaf going down the stream. And for some reason, I just would pretend what it would be like if I was that leaf. And 2 hours went by before the leaf was able to hit the lake. And it was 15 minutes. But 2 hours went by. I was in this zone of stillness. So when Spirit says we're going to be talking about stillness, I said, okay, this is a place that I think I've been a couple of times or several times in my life. So just imagine if you were a leaf and you're going down this stream and you see overhead that the trees are moving, and you look over to the shore, you see the rocks and the twigs and the different things that the leaf has to go over to get to the next place. It was a nice moving stream. And then you look underneath. Let's say you're the leaf, and then now you look underneath the water, and you can see the bottom of the stream floor moving. Okay? Well, one might think, what are you really seeing? Are you really seeing the trees move? Are you really seeing the ground move? So the question is, what's moving? If you're seeing all this, because from the perspective of the leaf, the tree is going by, it's moving. But what is really moving? It's you. Everything else is stationary. And that's what Spirit is saying is a little bit like how time works. Nothing is moving around you. You are moving. You are in this time-space reality that we feel that if things are getting older, the older neighborhood is moving, but it isn't. It's us that we see that old neighborhood in a different perspective. Now, those of you that have had a chance to go back to your old neighborhood, go back 30, 40 years, or however you were, whenever you were 5 or 10, and go back to that neighborhood, if it's still roughly in the same condition, all right? And if it is, you'll find that it's a lot smaller than you imagined it. Maybe because we were small, and we had to look up to see the stop sign. Now we're just looking at it as we're at that same height sort of thing. Maybe the tree, of course, that was in your backyard is now a lot higher because now 30 years have been added and the tree has evolved and grown. It's grown with you, right? Because time in this space is like a seed, and you are just like that. So the tree has the same age as you. So as it grows, you have grown. But when you look at that old neighborhood, it looks a lot smaller. It looks a lot more simple. And this is why we so long for it. It's simple. It's easy. Or it seemed it was. Maybe there was a lot of tumultuous times in your life, and I totally respect the fact that those that didn't go through that, they went through a very, very different childhood. But there were moments in some way, as a child, you look at things in a different way. So when you go back, you're saying, oh, it would be so nice to go back in those days. But then you think of what you had to go through, and then you say, maybe reconsider, I wouldn't want to go through all of the things I went through as a kid. It was an evolution for sure. But this is why when we look back, it is you in time that is moving, and everything around you is just it's just looking at you sort of thing. So that's what time really is. Time doesn't pass, you do. So when we look at, due to the years of that you're being distracted and all the things that are going on, and depending on how many times you've gone through this lack of stillness, like I had many opportunities to get into this stillness. I remember one time I had a lot of time to get back to school. I think I was in grade 3. And my house wasn't that far away. It was literally like half a kilometer. So I walked home for lunch. It was just something that my mom always made soup and some great stuff for lunch. So I walked home. But walking back, I said, oh my God, I got like 45 minutes to only go a half a kilometer. I got lots of time. And so it rained the day before. And as I was walking, I saw this little stick. It was almost like a popsicle stick. Those little popsicle sticks, we had as kids. And somehow it ended up, and it was floating down on the sidewalk very close to the road. But there was enough water where the popsicle stick and that was able to keep moving. And so I just sort of looked at it, mesmerized. And I walked at the speed of the popsicle stick, which was very slow. And what seemed like literally 15 minutes, it was almost an hour. And then I heard the bell. I recognized the sound of the bell, and that's the end of the lunch, and everybody had to get in. And I was still like halfway. I wasn't even close. So I as soon as I heard that, I said, oh, my Lord, I got to get to school. So I ran. But I was totally engulfed with this stick. And I didn't have any consciousness about time. I had no consciousness about myself. I was just focused on something that was happening in nature, and I was just observing it. when the stick got stuck in some of the pieces of dirt or whatever, I would just move it around, unstick it or whatever, and so it could keep moving. So for me, it was entertainment. And that was my entertainment. I had many moments like that through my life. But how many people had never had that? You've never had a point where you want to look at something because your whole childhood was all about entertaining. And if you look at kids now, something has to explode in front of them. Something has to be so entertaining, and there's lots of noise, lots of stimuluses that otherwise they're bored. They're totally bored, and my grandson is the same, and many other kids that I've met are the same. If it's not totally entertaining, like it's things like it has to be so over the top, they're bored. If I just tell them, well, do whatever you feel you want to do, and they're just totally spellbound. They just have no idea what to do with themselves. There's so much going on with their, I'm just bored. But in that boredom is what they're really saying is my head is full of noise, and I am used to other things that are guiding it rather than me guiding it. So there's a lot to say about having a lack of toys, having a lack of something where you are then almost resorting to the fact that, you have a stick and a ball, and that's all the toys you have. And you'll make the best of it, and you usually do. We always made little forts in our kitchen. We would put 4 chairs together, get a big blanket, throw it on top, and we make a fort under the kitchen. We would have all kinds of games for that. So people would come over to my house, and I had some toys, but I always found that it was better to make our own adventure. And so we used blankets, and we, went into the bush, and we would find the things under the trees. We'd pretend we're fighting some kind of just different things, and it was fun because we made our own adventure. It wasn't created, and we're just watching, being entertained. We entertained ourselves. And for those of you that know what I'm talking about, this is exactly, I think, what a lot of the kids these days are missing. This moment of stillness. And so when we don't sort of learn it when we're young, when are we supposed to learn it? And it's interesting. I'm not saying there's any relation, but I'm just interesting, just out of observation, that in my day, there was very few moments of mental anguish. We had tough times. No, don't get me wrong. We had things that we were trying to work through. But there was no mental illness. It wasn't even called that. It was just, we just had a tough time and we worked our way through it. And now people don't know what to do. So it was just interesting that with the people that had the stillness was able to unhook or detach themselves from the reality itself. Okay? But sometimes when we look at a person that's in stillness, we see it as a person resting, or as a person that's not doing anything, or as a person that's just wasting their time. And all we're looking for is getting away from sensationalism and looking at simplicity, peace. Isn't that what we want? In the end, that's what we want, but we're not sort of shown how to get there. And yet, Spirit says we have this peacefulness inside us. Just that it's too noisy and it doesn't come up and it doesn't surface itself as often. So this is why we gravitate to being either physically or mentally stimulated. We always have to be doing something. Okay, even in my sound therapy classes, we have a point where in my classes, when we hit the tuning fork and we listen to it, the most of the power happens when we don't hear the sound anymore. And we call it the still point. When the sound actually is gone, we don't hear the fork anymore, that's when it's most powerful. Because that's when you have silence that is filled with potential. Because microscopically, from an audio perspective, it's still vibrating, but at a very low volume. We don't hear it. but there's possibilities that are endless, and that's where the healing is. We call about the musical interval. We take two tuning forks, we tap them together, and we hold them apart, let's say 5-6 inches apart. It creates a blending. So if I'm hitting tuning fork A, let's say the 528, to tuning fork B, that could be the 396. One is made of fear and liberation, the other is love, and I just hold it. Then a third energy comes up from the blending of the two. They call it an interval, or they call it a point of collaboration. And when both of them go down to almost silence, where you don't hear it, that's when it's the most powerful, and that's when we put it on the body. Because it is silence to us, but to the energy, it is possibility. And that's where the healing is, in that silence. So when people say that you got to have noise in your house to make it so you feel safe, it's actually the opposite. Having that much noise means there's more fear that you have, and it's the abundance of sounds that is not really healing sounds that is really creating the discord in that way. All right? So the inner stillness is something that we really need, and we really need to make it so that we're not struggling anymore. That when it gets to a point where we're saturated with the stress and things that are going on, that we have an inner dialogue or an inner energy that says, I just want to be quiet. I don't know if some of you that are working in factories or working in places where there's a lot of noise, where there's a lot of office drama, and I know a lot of you are, and then when you get home, sometimes we just want quiet. Just that quiet. And sometimes it's so quiet, it's screaming. Have you ever heard that? Where it's so quiet, it screams. So Spirit says, that is your auditory detox. Because you've been hearing oddball sounds all day, and now you just want peace. You just want silence. And then somebody comes home, and they're creating the noise. They turn on the TV, the radio, their iPad. They put on their computer, and they're watching. And you just, sometimes you just can't take it. You just need silence. And so we just want to let you know that it isn't your tolerance that is getting shorter or your fuse getting shorter. It is your desire for stillness. Because in the stillness, that's where Spirit is. Spirit is your Creator is in the stillness, is in this web of ascension. They're in that place where it is. In other words, when silence is interrupted by possibility, because both silence from an auditory perspective will sound the same. Just from the example of the tuning fork, as it fades off and diminishes, it gets quieter and quieter until you don't hear it. But it's still going. And that's the possibility that we're talking about. That's the energy that you possess, that inaudible sound that you get. Silence is silence. Silence means no sound. No sound. So if I turn everything off and it's just the sound of the earth, okay, then it's random. But if you listen to the natural sounds, the wind blowing or the natural ones, those connect you. But the ones that are artificial, coming from speakers and coming from the various things that we hear all the time, ambulance going by, cars going by. Some of you people are right in front of a busy highway, and I get it. It's really hard to disconnect that way. But there's always going to be a point where you're going to want this stillness. Okay, you're going to want it to come out because this stillness will really help your health in so many ways. So one technique that Spirit wants to show you is one way is to be able to breathe and just be still. Okay, to be able to look at a point where you're looking at the moment that is coming and going and not wanting to change anything, not wanting to get part of anything. So when you're trying to get to this stillness, again, we talked about that in the last class, don't try. Just stay in with yourself and let stillness come to you. Because it's a vibration like everything else. It's quiet, like there's no sound, but they still have a stream of possibilities. And when you are honing in that way, you don't need the sound to be able to do it. Now, we've created a Stillness in December meditation where we had the raw stillness the other day when we did this. We did it through tuning forks and various bowls with no soundtrack. It was 52 minutes of various frequencies at a certain time and channeled in a certain way to create this stillness within. And you don't have to work. It's your energy feels this. But just to make it so it's more meditative and it's a little more engaging, we added a soundtrack, and we're going to play a little bit of it today so that you hear that. We can't play the whole thing because it's over 50 minutes, but we can play a portion of it where it'll sort of get you into that place. So the idea is to put your hands, so the palms, put one palm right on the heart chakra, so right in between, right at that breastbone. Put one palm there, and the other palm just above it. We call it the high heart. It's in between the heart and the throat, all right? One above, one below. And just take a nice deep breath in, and just listen to your breath. People have said that when you listen to your breath, the phonics of it is your creator. That, when you break it down in its scriptures, is how the Lord communicates with you. So every time you breathe, you're breathing out God. You're breathing out this. So many people have said this in many, many different ways. But if you hold that, then this is where you will start to look at people in a different way, where you don't want to change them, whether it's family members, whether even if it's your own children, whether it's neighbors and they're really not on board with some of the things and you see that they're always angry, you feel you want to help, and God love you. The fact that you're trying to help, but just realize this. By this point, with all of the information that's out there, and believe me, we have so much information. So many people will say and not deny that in our society, we have a plethora of information. There's information everywhere. This is why AI is so important, because there's so much information, there's no way we can cover it all. I mean, if we go back 125 years, the books weren't that very plentiful that had a lot of this stuff. And, there was only so much knowledge then. But every 3 months, the knowledge doubles in medicine. Every 5 months, something else doubles. So over the last 125 years, there's just so much information. So this is why AI is really good in that way, because there's so much of it. AI can take the legwork and the effort of finding this conjunction or this search to bring it down in just a few seconds. So it's wonderful that way, where it reduces your effort to start researching. Stop the researching. That way, Spirit loves AI, because you stop doing the effort to find it, because the information is there. Now, once you get the information, now we're on that second phase where we're sort of implementing it and making it so it's working for us. So one hand on the bottom, one hand on the top, and just breathe in. Now I want you to just say to yourself 3 times, I am. Then wait a second or two, and then just say, and then when you say I am, just leave it as a blank as to what would go there. I am love, I am whatever. So whatever you figure that, whatever that would be. Or if you're hearing something, what are you hearing of what you are? And then say it again, I am, and then pause. And then I am again, and then pause once more. Okay? When you do that, there's one more on top of that And it says, I am here. This is the fourth one. I am here, and that is enough. And what Spirit really, in a very gentle way, wants to show you and tell you that you don't have to do any effort. The fact that you are just present is everything. Just being present is everything. Because I'll tell you, that's what your kids all want. That's what your kids want. They just want you to be present to what they're doing. When somebody speaks and so many people aren't listening to them, just watch their face. I saw a meeting one time. There was about 15 people in the room. This person started talking, and this person wasn't really always a very big speaker. But when they started talking, other people started chatting among themselves, and then I just watched this person as everyone else started talking to other people. And I just watched this person. And as they were looking left and right, and they realized nobody's listening, they started to turn red. And then their eyes came to me. And that one person, because I was present, she kept talking. She kept talking through it. At the end of the meeting, she thanked me. And I says, for what? For being there. For just listening to me. I says, well, you were talking. I just felt it would be rude to do anything else but listen. And she says, I found that one of the most incredible things because nobody really had any interest in what I was saying. And does that look and sound familiar? How many times where you could be in a family of like literally 100 people? You know, some extended families with cousins and brothers and sisters, and like you come together as a family reunion. The whole town knows that you had a reunion. And still people say, I feel alone. Why? Because there's always people that are louder than myself. So it becomes a competition on who is louder rather than just simply let's hear this person out. So it's not the amount of people you have around you. You know, you could have literally one person in front of you and they're distracted. I mean, they're not even talking to anybody. On a first date, I saw this in an interview where a person went on their first date, and this lady says, I'm starting to see what the pattern is. And if a guy is not listening to me, I already know years in advance that he's not going to be listening to me and anything I say, and I'm going to feel like I'm less than. So I pick that out right away in the first date. And I look in their eyes, and as I'm talking, I'm seeing if there's a loud noise or if a nice waitress walks by with a nice figure, is the eyes following? I'm looking at that. If there's a loud noise and everyone's saying, oh, what is that? And he doesn't move his eyes, that's my man. So it's interesting when we look at function and we look at the stillness, is you have something to say, I'm mesmerized by what you have to say. Because that doesn't really change that much over the years. There are some ups and downs that people will go through, but essentially, when that happens, they are truly interested. And of course, there's other things that come into play there, but that's one of the biggest factors that this lady was always looking for, is what are they looking at? So they stop mocking people that aren't maybe where they need to be. For instance, if they are always in anger, and, a person that is going through an ascension, they've been working on anger for years and they've let things go one at a time. The anger of their childhood, the anger of what happened with a certain relationship, the fact that they were so mean to them and they were angry, they realized one by one, we need to let this go. It's not affecting that old relationship that was abusive. In fact, it's actually rebounding and recoiling itself back on me, and my health will eventually suffer because of it. So I'm going to let this anger go. I'm going to forgive, not because they got away with it, but because I can't carry the burden any longer. And so when people realize that, that is intelligence, that spiritual intelligence at work at the best moment. And to do that, you're always going to be in this moment of stillness. You're always going to be in this moment of, I don't hear any sounds, but it's full of messages. And it is just amazing, the messages I get in what's so-called silence. I could be at a cottage by the lake and just watch the waves hit the dock, and the sound of that as the shore, the waves and so on. And I'm totally present with nature. And Spirit said that is basically an interspecies communication, where you're getting nature to communicate with you, and they always have, but for the first time in your life, you're hearing it. And just like that lady that saw me listening and wasn't distracted, felt that if one person is listening and I have something to say, meaning it shows that someone is paying attention. And the nature is the same. Nature loves it. I mean, they don't need your approval. The flower is still beautiful even if nobody's watching it. But isn't it nice to walk by and say, wow, what a beautiful bloom. What a beautiful flower. I say that about lilacs. I really like lilacs, and there's certain towns I go through and you can smell it through there. And I just put it out there in the consciousness. Lilacs, I love that smell. And I know the tree or the bush heard that because somebody noticed the smell. Somebody noticed the purple bloom. And that's enough. The stillness is how we get there, though. That is the vehicle in getting there. So how do we do that? So time itself is how we do that. It's the fact that we are looking at time in a way that we never really have enough. And this is my challenge to you. We're going to get into meditation very, very soon. This is the challenge with all of this. Over the next week, before 2026, because we have about a week. It's about, 5 days? Well, it's about 5 days to get to the 31st. So in these next few days, I want you to take time and either listen to the meditation for 52 minutes, and I don't want you to do anything. Or just in silence, look outside, go to a park, go to a place where there are kids playing, and just watch. Just watch parents, watch the dog, watch people in the park walking. Just watch. What are you getting? What are you feeling that's happening? Because all of those are all messages that are unseen until you focus and then you see it. Can you do that for an hour? Absolutely mindless things. And then from that comes this extra layer of energy, and I it's hard to describe, and I don't want to because our language is so clumsy and sloppy. There's no way I could even start by describing how amazing it is when you're in this stillness. I've been there many times, and lately after this particular meditation, it is a little easier for me to get in there. And then I just go off. I'm off on a tangent, and I see things, I feel things. And everything has to have meaning to me now. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. I have to have juice. I call it creative juice. It has to have some kind of a creative force in me that makes me do things. And then I feel so certain about uncertain things that I usually was sort of focused on, right? To be able to take your energy when you have your hands on your heart and have it go through the earth, through all the soil and the rock and the lava and everything, and get to Gaia's, our Earth's heartbeat, and just say, I'm here, I'm present, knowing that the Earth's heart, know it's me. The Earth's heartbeat, the Earth's energy knows it's me, because every one of our energy is like a fingerprint. You send something out with love, they know where it came from. Now, your consciousness and whether you believe it or not is beside the point, but it doesn't need your belief for it to work. It works whether you believe it or not. Whether your consciousness is open to it is another thing. But the fact is, something is getting through and they know it's you. And when you connect that way, the things that you want will more connect to you. The new world that's coming up in 2026 is going to be an incredible year. This is why many of us have come in to this particular time so we could share it and be it. This is an incredible time, and we did not want to miss this. All of us in some way wanted to go through and have a front row seat of what it was like in 2026. You're going to hear a lot of 2026 in 2026. And it's been leading up, those that are following the Three-Eye Atlas comet and other things going on, all of it is preparing us for what's about to happen in 2026. So this is all this point, but the stillness is the vehicle to really start getting in deeper and feeling this stuff. It's going to be remarkable. And it'll be a point where there's no way that you're going to be able to understand it or decide what it is. Spirit is also saying that telepathy is when the heart is open and the mind is still, naturally. This is not about quieting the mind. Please don't misunderstand. It's about having the mind naturally still, where all the things that was taught to you to think about this, to think about the fear, to think about the anxiety, to think, is all gone. And your mind is now realizing that the mind and the heart are as one. The heart is the feminine energy, the mind is the masculine energy. But when they come together, it's absolutely beautiful when they dance together. If you look at any dance, someone has to lead and the other has to follow backwards. And it's wonderful to see when they're working together, when your mind and your heart are together. Even when they say the longest distance you'll ever travel is 18 inches. That's from your mind to your heart. When you finally get there, in this stillness, you'll realize why you had to go through it all. All I can say, without describing it, is that it's worth it. It was worth it for me. I can't tell you if it's going to be worth it for you. That's your journey. But it was worth it for me to get into this. And each time I do, I find something else amazing and spectacular and wonderful about myself that the Creator has put in since the beginning, that I'm just now discovering. No wonder I'm always so happy. So people say, you're always so happy. Why? How do you describe that? So I just let them figure it out. It's not for me to describe how to get there. I could tell them everything I've done, and they won't do any of it. So I'm not going to waste my time. They'll figure it out when they're ready. Okay, so let's get right into our meditation. I want you to take a big deep breath of this white or neutral energy. We'll play about maybe 10-15 minutes of the meditation. And again, if you go to our site, I hope you listen to this in its entirety from the beginning to the end, because it's a journey. It's a sound journey from beginning to end. It takes 52 minutes. We're going to play a little bit of it just to get your whistle wet sort of thing, okay? And hopefully you'll find out more about yourself in the coming days. But let's start by taking a deep breath. Just focus on your breathing. That's it. I don't want you to do anything. Don't try. Stop trying. Make it look easy. See you in a bit. Slowly come back into the room that you're in. Remember what you felt. Remember what messages you might have received. And it's just the initial ones that you'll get. If you didn't get anything, know that something did go in, and something actually came out that you didn't need. Practice this. Because in time you will notice that the little things that come out that you don't need accumulate, and you'll start feeling lighter. You'll start looking at things differently. Things won't be such a knee-jerk reaction anymore. You'll see the world as it's not something that you need protection from. Because it all comes down to clarity and authenticity. When you're clear about something, you don't need protection. If you have armor, it means you have fear. It's time to drop the armor. Drop the weight. Drop the swords and all the things that are heavy. It's going to communicate with you. In 2026, we'll really move this forward. So by doing it now, you're going to get a nice running start. It won't be so difficult and such a struggle by holding on to something that is heavy. Because realizing that when the Titanic went down, the first thing you're going to grab is not the ship. So hopefully it's a lifeboat, something that's lighter on top. I want to thank everybody that has, in 2025, has come to all these classes that we've done live. And I hope it's been a value to you, something that you look forward to every Friday. And it doesn't matter what the audience is in terms of numbers. Spirit still wants to relay a very good message and an important message for you, so that it's something that you could use right away, right after the show. There's no training. It's something that you can practice. Very easy steps were done. So if you have a comment, anything you'd like to say, make it in the comment. You are going to be on my Facebook page, Tony Gyenis, under Facebook. And if there's a comment that you want to leave, we'd be happy to look at that. Look for any suggestions you might have of what you'd like to hear more in the coming months and years. This is our last show for 2025, so until we meet again next week, know that you've come a long way, and it was all for a reason. Nothing was wasted in your life. You're going to be able to use some of it as lessons, and some of it you'll be able to use to be able to tell others what the path was if they go a certain way. What it's like when we're holding on to so many heavy things. How it brings your own journey to a halt. I hope this has been a good journey for you, or a helpful journey for you. Among all the other things that you're doing, we're glad that we're able to add to it. If you know somebody that could use to hear this, we will be posting this on our YouTube channel right away, because it is, again, timely, and our members will get the other version of the deeper versions of it, but we'll have it there for everyone to see the basics of it. And on our YouTube channel at Raising Your Spirits with Tony, you'll be able to find the meditation there too, in its video form as well. Okay? So practice inner simplicity and know that it's best to look at stillness instead of struggle. Thank you. We'll see you next year.